So good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining the Ink Dance, a virtual talk presented by the Canadian Society for Asian Arts and the UBC Asian Library. My name is Phoebe Chow, the Program Services Assistant at the UBC Asian Library. I would like to acknowledge that the UBC's Great Campus is situated on the traditional ancestral ceded territory of the Musqueam people. And where I am in the city of Vancouver is situated on the traditional territories of Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people. I would also like to acknowledge that many of you come from different places tonight and join us. And near or far, we acknowledge the traditional owner and caretakers of those lands. So today we will record this talk so that people who cannot attend tonight, they can view it in the later time. And we will email you all when the link is ready. And then we will also post it in the Asian Library's website. So you can stay tuned for that. So now I would like to pass Adolfo, the head of the Asian Library. And he is also the head of the technical services in the UBC Library. He will say a few words to welcome everyone. Adolfo, pass to you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm so happy to see such a great turnout for this event, and I'm sure it's going to be a wonderful experience for all of us. Thank you, Phoebe. That is very kind of you to lead us through these opening sessions. The technology is always a challenge, and so we're in good hands with you. As Phoebe noted, I am Adolfo Trango, and while Shirin Eshki is away on maternity leave, I have the pleasure of serving as acting head of Asian Library. I'm pleased to welcome you to this Ink Dance calligraphy program. I'm sure you will find it, as I said, most interesting and enjoyable. We at the Asian Library are honored to be able to work with and support the Canadian Society for Asian Arts in presenting this program. The Asian Library and its staff have a long history of working with members of the Asian community and community groups in promoting a greater understanding of Asian cultures and societies, and in celebration of both. Asian Library has, in fact, been engaged in such work for 60 years in service to the University of British Columbia and the broader community. To mark these 60 years of service, Asian Library created a 60th anniversary online exhibit wherein we highlight this work. I encourage you to visit our exhibit to learn more about our work and our mission. Before I speak more about CSAA and introduce our host, I wish to acknowledge the work of Phoebe, who is our program service assistant for Asian Library. Phoebe did a lot of promotion for and handled, and of course is handling the technical aspects of this live event. As well, I recognize Jing Liu, our Chinese language librarian, who handled outreach to our UBC faculty and students. A few words about the Canadian Society for Asian Arts. CSAA was established in 1969 and has been promoting the understanding and appreciation of Asian arts ever since. As a volunteer-based, nonprofit educational organization, the Society presents Pan-Asian programs, including exhibitions, talks, demonstration, and performing arts events, such as this one, free to its members and the public. I note Asian Library is looking forward to collaborating with CSAA in a future exhibition on ink dance calligraphy. Margaret Palmer is the Society's current president, and I would like to introduce her now. Margot has maintained a lifelong interest in the arts and cultures of Asia and was a member of CSAA while completing her graduate studies at UBC. It is worth noting that Margot has co-curated more than a dozen exhibitions and countless public programs with CSAA, often researching and writing exhibit catalogs, including for the most recent exhibit at the Museum of Vancouver entitled Dragon Jar and Lotus Bowls, celebrating the 50th anniversary of CSAA. It's my honor and privilege to now present CSA President Margot Palmer. Margot.
Thank you, Adolfo. It's wonderful to be with you, everyone. And I would say a warm welcome on behalf of the Canadian Society for Asian Arts to the Ink Dance Calligraphy program today. Now, the program has been designed as an introduction to the art of calligraphy, and it's really in preparation for and as a background to the Ink Dance Calligraphy exhibition that will be featured at the University of British Columbia's Asian Center in cooperation with the Asian Library. And the exhibition will offer a retrospective view of the work of Master Yim Tse, a celebrated librarian, calligrapher, mentor, and philanthropist. And we will be in touch with you about when the exhibit will be mounted and available to view. And we're hoping to provide some video virtual support for the exhibition as well. Now, today the program includes a presentation by Professor Jan Walls on the art of calligraphy, and we'll follow that with a short video demonstrating calligraphy. And the video was made by the CSAA in preparation for this program. So we hope you're going to enjoy it. And we'll follow that with a question and answer period that will be moderated by Professor Jan Walls, and then we'll conclude the program. So now I would like to begin by introducing Professor Jan Walls, and he is a professor emeritus in the Humanities Department of Simon Fraser University here in British Columbia. And that's where he taught Chinese language and intercultural communication. Professor Walls has published literary and cultural studies. He's lectured widely. And he continues to be extraordinarily active in the community, promoting the arts and culture of China and intercultural communication generally. The depth and breadth of Jan's expertise is renowned. And I would say that CSAA has been very fortunate that Jan has served as one of our presidents, and he still works with the society as a director. Lucky us. So I introduce you to Professor Jan Walls. Jan?
Thank you, Margot, for that somewhat exaggerated introduction or resume that you just gave for me. Yeah, I taught Chinese language and East Asian cultures for something like 38 years here in British Columbia. Starting at UBC, and then they got tired of me, so I switched to University of Victoria for another 7 or 8 years, and then they got tired of me, so I came back to Vancouver, and I taught at Simon Fraser University until I retired in 2006. Enough about me. To tell you the truth, although I did my bachelor's, master's, and PhD degrees in Chinese and Japanese languages, literatures, culture, and so on, I didn't really understand the complexity, the aesthetics, or the cultural significance even of Chinese calligraphy until after I had finished my PhD in Chinese language and literature and moved to Vancouver to teach Chinese at UBC. It was there that I first met and quickly became good friends with UBC's most influential, he's a Chinese librarian and one of Vancouver's most influential calligraphers, Yim Tse, from 1970 until his passing away just 3 years ago. I met Yim in 1970, as I say. Yim pointed out something that is really fundamental to appreciating Chinese calligraphy. He said, the ability to read Chinese characters is not as important as seeing and feeling how they are expressed. People should approach calligraphy, he said, in the same way that they approach painting, seeing it as an abstract form of expression. Look how the brush performs wonders with all its variations, he said. The ink tones may be drier or wetter. The size of the characters can vary between smaller and larger. Consider, for example, the calligraphic sample here, remnants of a dream. Consider its downward motion. It starts in the upper right and it moves down, the remnants of what's left over from a dream. Also, 听雪, listen to the snow. Listen to the snow. You get, well, in the first place, we don't expect listen to the snow. We expect listen to the rain, don't we? You can feel, you can almost see the falling of the snow in the way that the longer and narrower representations of these two characters. Ting, for example, to listen, the top one, could be written in a pretty much square fashion. It could, but for the artistic purposes of falling, it is a longer and narrower way of writing. Yim illustrated the importance of a single brush stroke with chalk on a blackboard when he gave my Chinese 200 class. This was back in the early 70s at UBC. A 20-minute introduction to brushwork using a single horizontal line, the character for one. It took him 20 minutes to explain and illustrate how to produce this single horizontal line. It involves pressing down harder at the beginning, lessening your grip as you move from left to right, and pressing again when you come to the end, and lifting it up toward the left as you finish with the hook at the end. Can you imagine the amount of detail that goes into the simple production of a horizontal line? Now, for a little background on Chinese calligraphy, 4 skills that every cultured Chinese person for the last 2,000 years must master. Chinese call them qin, qi, shu, hua, zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting. So calligraphy is one of the 4 fundamental skills that every cultured Chinese has been expected to master for the last couple of millennia. Calligraphy literally means beautiful writing, comes from the Greek kalligraphia, kalos meaning beauty, graphein meaning to write. It's been viewed as an art form in many cultures around the world. But the honored role of calligraphy in Chinese culture is unmatched. In China, from a very early period, calligraphy was considered not just a form of decorative art, it was ranked alongside poetry as a means of self-expression and cultivation. How one wrote was as important as what one wrote. The brush pen, the ink stick, the stone inkwell, and rice paper are known to all Chinese as the 4 treasures of the scholar's studio. We see them here all in this one box. They have always been the indispensable tools of any educated Chinese person. Let's look at them. The brush pen, notice the downward, upward, left, and right movements are all controlled, not by the hand, not by the fingers, but by the arm. The wrist does not rest on the table or wherever the paper is. The wrist is above it, holding the pen completely vertically, okay? And this is hard. I mean, because, you know, we're used, for most of us who are used to writing, you know, probably with our wrist on the table or on the paper or whatever, to give, and we'll see this a little bit later in the when Greta gives her demonstration, the tiniest, finest, the little movements are controlled by the arm, not by the hand, not by the wrist, not by the fingers. So the ink stick then, which you see resting on the inkwell here, the ink stick is dipped into the water, which is in the deep end of the inkwell, and rubbed usually in a circular motion on the shallow end until the ink has reached a desired consistency. When the ink is prepared, the calligrapher spreads out a sheet of rice paper being highly absorbent, absorbent kind of paper, a high degree of absorptive capacity, allowing the calligrapher to control each stroke's degree of moisture, dryness, darkness, width, etc. At its best, calligraphy is an art in which the form of the expression must be in total harmony with the concept being presented. And in its execution, the artist may give full rein to the expression of his or her brilliance. This is why many calligraphers favor the running and cursive script styles. These are, this is maybe a good example of what can be done with a single brush, involving harder pressure, greater moisture, pushing harder, lifting, and so on. All of these are ways that a character or an element of a character can be presented. Okay, just a quick look at where Chinese characters that are used in calligraphy, where they come from. You can see in the upper left, the earliest form, the oracle bone script of a horse. All of these are representations of Ma, which is a horse. Evolved a little later into bronze script, evolving into another form of bronze script in the spring and autumn period, bronze script in the Warring States period. You can see it's evolving down to the second row on the left, evolves even more, called the slip script, bamboo slip script of the Chu period, the bamboo slip script, the small seal script, the clerical script, and what is today called regular script, the unsimplified version, and then this regular script, but in semi-cursive form. So you can see that, for example, the 4 dots at the bottom, which were the legs of the horse at one time, become a single line, but with 3 or 4 downward motions. So those represent 4 dots. That's the semi-cursive or the running script. And then the cursive script, where if you use your imagination, you can see that it's abbreviating all of the strokes, slurring over all of the strokes in the semi-cursive script. And you see finally the simplified way of if written with a pen in the simplified form of the character today. But we're talking mostly about, in calligraphy, mostly semi-cursive and cursive today. Look at this, for example. This Jingtao Lian, terrifying waves crack the shore. Terrifying waves crack the shore, spewing mounds of snow. can you feel the power, the movement of the waves crashing against the rocky shore in here? I can. And again, to illustrate Yim's point, you don't have to be able to read the Chinese characters. If you know what this is, that this is terrifying waves crack the shore, spewing mounds of snow, then you can feel the contents. You can feel the contents of that line. Now, the difference between, let's see, just a second. Let's see where I am here. Okay, on the left, we see written in the normal or regular style. This is not the running cursive style, but we see twice the chrysanthemums have opened, tears of other days. A single boat is totally tied to old garden memories. Now, this is a almost like lamenting. Almost, it's a what's the best way of putting this? It's a very orthodox, and a traditional way of expressing longing for days gone by. So the calligrapher uses regular script for this, standard script. There's not much room for flourishing, and that's why the standard script is used. But the other, on the right-hand side, the other one in the running and cursive, this is more running style. The running style, we see ambition fulfilled, exuberant but not arrogant, ambition thwarted, exhausted but not disgraced, sociable but not reliant, independent but not afraid. This is, the calligrapher is writing a very famous couplet from by Sudong Po, a Song Dynasty poet. But there's much room for, this is almost like a philosophy of life, Ambition fulfilled, exuberant but not arrogant, ambition thwarted, exhausted but not disgraced, sociable but not reliant, independent but not afraid. Okay. Now, a former colleague of mine in Victoria back in the late 1970s, Joan Stanley Baker, describes calligraphy this way. She says, calligraphy is sheer life experienced through energy in motion that is registered as traces on silk or paper, with time and rhythm in shifting space, its main ingredients. Calligraphy is sheer life experienced through energy in motion that is registered as traces on silk or paper, with time and rhythm in shifting space as its main ingredients. Now, Chinese calligraphy, the calligraphic art, the art of Chinese calligraphy, does not only depend on the artist's intention, it is also autographic, revealing the personality and the character of the artist. There's a well-known Chinese expression. Chinese often say, 见其字，知其人. Look at their characters and know their character. If you want to take a deep look into the character of a master calligrapher, look no farther than the words of Yim Tze himself. Yim said, when I write calligraphy, I hope to find stillness in movement, release without releasing, restraint without restraining. This is why I marvel at the wonders of the moves of the writing brush. Success without astonishment, obstruction without distress. This is how I retain my serenity and peace. We have rules, but we are not bound by them. We can be carefree, but we are not reckless. We go from clumsiness to finesse. We arm our strength with suppleness. Once the structure is set, the potential for power is unleashed. Then, when you fill it with meaning, the exceptional abounds, straightening the heart, cultivating the emotions, and tweaking the temperament. This is why I choose to roam. Once the calligrapher has finished the piece, whether it's a couplet, a parallel couplet, or an essay even, or just one or two characters with expressing a powerful feeling. When the writing is finished, you know, the Chinese don't have as much faith in a written signature as we do in the West, because anyone can imitate someone else's signature. But when they want to give an official signature, and it's the same in Japan, you know, when I remember this from back in the late 1960s, whenever I went to the bursar's office in Aichi University, where we were teaching, to pick up my weekly or bi-weekly check, whatever it was, I forget. I couldn't sign for it. I had to have my chop, my seal. And the same when you go into a bank, because anyone can forge your signature, but not anyone will have your seal, your personal seal. So the official signature is given in the form of a seal with either with the calligrapher's name or usually an encapsulated value that the calligrapher particularly appreciates or particularly likes, such as you see here, auspicious, cultivated, morale, and so on. And that is the way a calligraphic piece is finished. And I think that might be a decent place for me to finish this presentation and make way. Okay, Andrew Yang, Greta Ho. Now, Greta is going to be giving us a classic example of how calligraphy, a simple, short example of how calligraphy is performed. Greta Ho, known to her Chinese-speaking colleagues as Hong Zijun, Greta Ho is a well-known member in the Greater Vancouver Chinese-speaking community. I know her as a long-time member of the Vancouver Chinese Canadian Artists Federation, I believe it's called, a long name. She was also a very successful real estate agent at one time, but she's also been a long-time disciple of Yim Tze himself, the master himself. And she is a well-known painter, classical Chinese painting style here. And she has, her paintings have been exhibited in major exhibitions. But she's going to demonstrate calligraphy for us. And Andrew, I have known him, as I said, for several decades as a journalist, newspaper journalist, then also as a as a producer. He was one of the producers of the early edition on CBC Radio for several years until he retired, I guess. And he's all along been a disciple of Yim Tze, one of Yim's senior disciples. He's going to be describing what's going on as Greta gives us the demonstration. And this will be, you'll see this is being done, this demonstration is being done in the delightful house, in the home of Margot Palmer, who introduced the whole thing here a while ago, her president of the Canadian Society for Asian Arts. And she had great cooperation with Jaeger Ma, who is an incredible videographer who worked with him. So you'll see this. Why don't we go right into Andrew and Greta? Shall we do that now?
Thank you, Jan, for your introduction and for a short but interesting intro to Chinese calligraphy. And actually, I learned quite a bit. And thank you for bringing on some of my teacher Yim's fantastic work. It's an honor to participate in this session, and it's great to know that people in many places around the world are interested in a form of Chinese, traditional Chinese culture, as well as my teacher's works. Greta, you want to say something?
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Yeah, it's really like nice to join the event, and really thank you for James. You give the lots so wonderful lecture about the calligraphy. So I just want to say thank you and welcome everyone. Then we just go on the video because I don't want to repeat Andrew say. Okay.
Hi there, it's Andrew, and this is Greta. We're going to tell you a little bit about how to write Chinese characters and putting them together into a piece of art. First, let me show you the 4 tools. A brush, an ink stick, some rice paper, and finally, an inkwell. Now next, we're going to get on to the 8 basic character strokes. And Greta is going to write the character Yong, which is forever. She will start putting down the point. She's finished the second stroke, which is horizontal. The next one is a vertical, plus the hook. Next, on the left side, there's a short up right and the down left, a bit long. And on the right hand side,
she's going to finish up with the last two, which is down left short and the down right long. So those are the basic 8 strokes. And students always start with the character Yong. Thank you, Greta. So now we have the basic character strokes. Greta is going to write the poem by the Tang Dynasty poet Du Fu. The poem is called Joy at Spring Night Rain. She's going to write in 2 script styles. They are cursive and running. The point is, some of the character strokes are linked, one that flows into another and the next. And some of them might be a little bit separate. So with the freedom, it helps the flow and the energy. And we also notice the sturdiness in the way that she's holding the brush, which is very difficult. I would say Greta has practiced this for quite a few decades. Well, the poem says, "A good rain knows when to fall." And she's on to the second sentence, which is waiting to come along with spring. Next, the poem says, "Following the breeze, it slips in by night." And we notice that some of the strokes are separate, but most of them flow into one another. And that's a very distinct characteristic for the cursive script. And she's getting on to the last sentence. "Moisturing things without a sound." And you will notice, in terms of size, length, width, some of the characters are much bigger, longer, or wider than others. And the calligrapher uses this freedom to enhance the artistic beauty and the enjoyment for the person who is looking at it. So she's finished the body of this piece, and she's now going to write a colophon, which is an after note, telling us the time, the place, and the name of the calligrapher. And she's saying, in the year of the ox, in the new spring, penned by Hong Zijun, which is Greta Hong. Now, quite often we have seals to bring up the rear when you finish up a piece of work. She's now using a pad because sometimes the paper or the table surface may not be smooth enough. And you also need a seal guide. Now, the use of the seals has an important purpose of balancing out with the characters and the flow of energy. So she's just put down her name in a seal. And that usually comes at the end. And sometimes, and quite often actually, you put a leisure seal near the beginning, just one or two or even half a character down on the right, which is in the form of a motto or some like well-known sayings that one needs to, constantly remind themselves. A good rain knows when to fall, waiting to come along with spring. Following the breeze, it slips in by night, moisturing things without a sound. Now finally, Greta is going to write the character Fortune for us. And you will notice this is on red paper. Red means good luck, happiness, and it's very seasonal right now. As we're just stepping into the year of the ox, and we have lots of good wishes and abundance of energy. Thank you, Greta. That's lots of energy, very robust. Wishing all of us great fortune in the year of the ox. Thank you, Greta.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Greta. That was a great illustration, the fundamentals of Chinese calligraphy. Comments are absolutely as welcome as questions. And questions can be addressed to Andrew, to Greta, to myself, or actually to any of the hosts who are here. Questions or comments? From Aubrey, what is the red material used for the seals? The red, you mean the paste, the paste. Greta, would you like to answer that? What is the red material that you were poking your seal into before applying it? And are both the name, signature, and the motto unique? Are they unique to the individual?
Yeah, the red paste is made. It's made from quite like zhusa, but I don't know how that's saying in English. Zhusa, if you can translate for me, is kind of a mineral, red color, zhusa.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
The important, because zhusa is quite expensive. People say the zhusa is expensive as a gold.
Mm-hmm.
So that's is quite like expensive thing if you can buy the good one. So you call it zhusa.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it's only especially for the seal for the calligraphy. Yeah, and it comes a different shade of the red. Some are like a brighter, some are darker. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Then unfortunately, I bought that quite a long time ago from Shanghai Museum. So I got a very good quality one, so I can keep that for as long as keep for many years. Yes.
The other question was the red material. The other one was the name, the seal with your name, which is your signature, and the motto one. Are these unique to yourself?
Yeah, that it's all like a special meaning for that.
Mm-hmm. Do you carve your own seals?
Oh, those two are carved from my master, Li Wowen. I know you know him, right?
Oh yeah, old friend.
Yeah, he's the best the seal covering artists in the town. I mean, used to, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, Yvonne shows me Zhu Sha is cinnabar. Cinnabar.
a cinnabar.
Cinnabar. Okay. Also called vermilion cinnabar. I hope that answers. Jing Liu already answered cinnabar. Cinnabar. And so did PG. PG answered cinnabar. How come it took us so long to get that? I hope that answered your question, Aubrey. Any more questions?
Yes, Jen, someone asked, is still okay, okay or not okay to write left-handed?
Well, I can only answer with Yim's policy as a teacher. This was back in the 1970s, because I had a student named David Lloyd, who was learning a bit of calligraphy from Yim. And David was left-handed. He was a left-handed potter, actually. But he told that to Yim. Yim said, doesn't matter. The only challenge is, you have to use the standard stroke order. First stroke, second stroke, third stroke. They're a very precise order. You cannot change the order of the strokes. And second, you got to make sure that the hooks always hook in a leftward, upward direction, because that's natural for the right hand, but it's not the natural direction for the left hand. So make sure that you do your hooks, your hooks come sort of facing the left. That was Yim's policy. And frankly, you know what? I will never forget this. When I was visiting an old Taoist temple is about 25 kilometers from Guangzhou in Guangdong province once, just inside the entrance to this Taoist temple there was a table set out, and there was a calligrapher sitting behind the table, and he had several rolls of rice paper there. And I asked him, what are you doing here? And he said, I create parallel couplets for people. And I said, oh, that's interesting. You want to do one for me? Sure. What's your name? I said, Wang Qian. And he then picked up two pens, two brush pens, one in his left hand, one in his right hand. And he started writing a parallel couplet, not one hand first and then the other hand, simultaneously, his left hand and his right hand writing simultaneously a couplet which was antithetically parallel. In other words, noun next to noun, verb next to verb, adjective next to adjective, and so on. And he created a perfect parallel couplet in which my surname, Wang, was the first word in the first half of the couplet, and Jian was the first word in the second half of the couplet. I can't remember what the exact words of it, but he was doing left hand, right hand writing simultaneously. So the Chinese call that 左右开弓, the left and right working at the same time. So yeah, it can be done, obviously.
Okay, next question. Yeah. Jessica asks, does anyone still practice the oldest form of calligraphy, oracle script?
The oracle script? Yes and no. Yes, for very special occasions. A local poet calligrapher who lives in Richmond does shell and bone jagu and shell and bone script for special occasions. If it's like the name of an organization or some special, but just for a short piece, like the name of an organization or a specific activity or function or celebration or something like that. That is a highly specialized form of calligraphy. Yeah. We have a few experts in the greater Vancouver area, experts in the Jago script. These are, I would say, linguistic historians, probably, people in historical linguistics. One of them actually at UBC, is a professor emeritus now from UBC, a Japanese Canadian who is a leading authority. Even the Chinese recognize him in China as a leading authority in the Jago script. So, oh, yeah, he's this professor is Ken Takashima. If you want to look him up, Ken Takashima. In Japanese, Takashima Kenichi. Takashima Kenichi. Questions? Any other questions?
Someone have a question for Andrew. How long has Andrew been doing calligraphy?
Hi there. Good question. I have been doing it for about 20 years, sometimes very intensively, and but more or less like every day.
Any calligraphy classes given in Vancouver in Cantonese? Are there any? I'm sure there are. Andrew, do you know of anyone now?
Practically all of them except me, myself, and perhaps Greta. Everybody speaks Cantonese, so yeah. I don't know if they're taking students right now, but I do know we do have a few tutors, right?
Yes, we have another answer here. Tony Feng at the Richmond Public Market teaches in Cantonese, Mandarin, and English.
Oh, I see.
Tony Feng, F-E-N-G, at the Richmond Public Market. What should a student of Chinese calligraphy learn prior to or read in preparation for putting text into a painting?
Greta has experience because she's been both painting and doing calligraphy for quite a few years. Greta?
If that's in English version, there's a book published a long time ago. It's called 芥子园谱 in English.
Mustard Seed Manual.
Yeah, in English. It's published by Princeton University. I bought that one about 30 years ago in English. And if in Chinese version, there's many like different writers or the painters. It's like a textbook, so it's easily you can find that in local like a Chinese bookstore. You can get from there.
I guess you can also learn by looking at calligraphic works, and you can work out some rules, because there are some rules as to where you put them, the colophons, the end notes, how big the size of the characters, how big they can be, like relative to the main text, and how long, that kind of thing. If you watch, if you look, after a while, you will get a sense of what would be like appropriate things to write, and where and how to write them.
Looking back at your years of calligraphy work, what are the things that your journey has taught you? What are the main things that your calligraphic journey has taught you?
Can I answer first?
Sure, ladies first.
Yeah, for myself, because I have my own career. So just as Jim introduced me, I'm the realtor. So my daily life is very like busy and intense. So that's why I keep doing the calligraphy for more than 30 years. So what I learned from there is just the patient. So by doing that, you learn, doing things is not to rush and relax for doing the, like try to doing things is not to rush or to like anxious. So I learned that from like be patient, be slow down. Yeah, that's what I learned.
I feel it. Yes, you learn to be patient more effectively by practicing calligraphy. It looks easy because it's only one stick writing, right? But remember, you have one inch of animal hair, or maybe much shorter. And the thing is, you have to learn to keep the brush straight or a little bit, slant at a slight angle, as the need may be, but you have to like really control it. So as my late teacher Yim taught us, there are 3 stages of calligraphy learning. The first one is learn to be able to control the water, the ink, and the writing brush. So this is the basic level of calligraphy as a kind of a skill. And the second level is an art, practicing as a way to express yourself, your passion, your emotions, how you're feeling about your life, about this world. And there's a lot you can do. And the highest level is practicing calligraphy as a way of life, incorporate it into the things you do daily, which is doing things in order and putting yourself in a larger context of your family, your friends, your community, the world. And that's, of course, a very high place for anybody to reach. But that was exactly what my teacher tried consistently and very hard to reach. And I think I learned quite a lot from his teachings, not only on this point, but on like other fronts as well. But this certainly has been a major thing to learn and understand.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, Andrew.
How is the ink made and what is the base?
I think that question was already asked directly to Greta. The material is what they call zhusha cinnabar.
And I think that was talking about Ingni, the ink used for.
Oh, were we talking? This was about
Yes.
the ink with the brush. Well, I think that was illustrated. I talked about it in my overview. The ink stick is dipped into the water in the deep part of the ink well and is applied to the shallower part and until the ink, as you grind it on the shallow part of the inkwell, when it reaches the consistency that the calligrapher wants, then they start dipping the brush into it and so on.
As to what the ink, is made of, I think maybe you guys can correct me. It was, I think it was like when it started, it was made by mixing charcoal with some kind of glue. And as it developed and
became sophisticated, I think people started to add something like in the seal ink, like cinnabar. People added some kind of like essence from tree barks or from animal excretion, like musk, 麝香, just to help keep the ink for a long time. So sometimes people use ink sticks that have been like hundreds of years old, and they could be quite expensive, but they do keep. And if you smell it, sometimes it has a very good scent.
We have another way of expressing that on the chat. This person says soot from burning oil or wood, often pine wood, plus an adhesive. Very succinct way of putting it. Okay.
I agree with that.
Okay, I have, it's called a question, but I think it's more of a comment, but it's a question from Kelly Ip, whom everybody, it doesn't need any introduction here, everybody knows Kelly. He says, I have a question with which some non-Chinese may want to know too, and that is, we traditionally write Chinese vertically from right to left, up, down, and then right to left. But if we write horizontally, it's usually from left to right. It's easy to figure out if it's an essay, which direction you should read it in, right? If it's an essay, but when it comes to signs from left to right, it can have different meanings if you read it from right to left, because each Chinese character has, each Chinese character is also a word, and it can be read as a word. It can have different meanings if you read it in the opposite direction. Actually, I will add here, Kelly, that one of the practices of traditional Chinese poets was to write what they called hui wen shi, reversible verse. They would write an entire poem, either a 4-line poem or an 8-line poem, in a form that can be read in one direction and have beautiful poetic meaning, and then read it backwards in the other direction, and it also has a fine poetic meaning. Kelly continues, I think before 1949, it was usually, if not always, from right to left, but now it's all from now it's all from left to right. It's also interesting to see that the two Chinese daily newspapers here, one turns the paper from left to right, like English newspapers, and the other from right to left, like more traditional Chinese newspapers. Thank you, Kelly, for that observation. Somebody asked the question, isn't cinnabar toxic?
I think it is toxic, but it can also be medicinal. For example, people use it in curing heart problems. Yeah, for one use.
I think I got one that's very early question. Let me take a look. How do we learn the cursive characters? Are there different cursive style for the same characters?
Simple answer, yes, but let Greta or Andrew answer that.
Yeah, can I answer that in Mandarin?
Let's give it a try.
Okay, 草书 ，OK， 有书谱，你要照着书谱写 ，you have to follow the Tang Dynasty called 书谱 ，OK， so also 要 memorize all the character， 它有一个 form 一定要记住，然后一个字可能会有2个、3种不同的写法，但是你都记住。我记得有一位写草书的朋友告诉我，他说一个中文字你要记得3种草书的写法， 不能只记得一种，所以要记住3种不同的写法。
Okay, there exists such a thing as shupu. This is it's like a calligraphy, a recipe for calligraphy, for calligraphic characters. And the best way to learn them is to learn them from this recipe for 草书 for grass. The Chinese call it grass characters, grass calligraphy. But can I show you something? One of the best ways of, and Greta also says everybody should learn at least 3 ways of writing, right, Greta? At least 3 ways.
3 ways. 一个字有3种写法。
Yeah, so
yeah,
there are 3 ways of writing, of doing the cursive writing of every character. But let me show you the way that I've been doing it. Can you see this? This is a flashcard, and this is the 草书 form of the character for 左. So you can test yourself, study this way of writing it, and then test yourself by having a series of flashcards like this with the grass character way of writing on the other side. So you should have a whole stack. You should have a whole stack of these. I have a pretty huge stack of these that I review every once in a while. I don't do calligraphy, but I do need to read cursive script. So I have a stack of flashcards with several hundred of these in it. For me, that's the best way. But if you're going to practice calligraphy, you ask your teacher.
This comes to the end of our program, and I would like to offer thanks to the Asian Library team, in particular Phoebe Chow, who I think has done a heroic job of pulling together very complex components of this virtual learning world. And I would also like to thank our presenters, of course. I think Jan Walls and Greta Ko and Andrew Yang are truly extraordinary in the depth and breadth of their lifetime experience with Chinese culture and, of course, calligraphy in particular. I would like to remind you that, as Phoebe Chow has indicated, that the recording of this event will be made available to you all at a later date. So don't worry about that. It will be accessible again. And I would also like to remind you that the Canadian Society for Asian Arts and the UBC Asian Library are continuing to develop the Ink Dance exhibition, which will be a retrospective of Master Yinze's calligraphic works. And we'll also let you know when that happens. For now, the date of it is to be announced. I would also like to thank Yeager Ma, who was our videographer, for his huge patience and creativity in putting together the video that we played for you. And we're hoping to do more of this to make more of our programs accessible in a virtual way. And we'll see to putting those out with our partners and also on the CSAA website. So I think we are opening up a new way of working and a new way of reaching many people who know us, but also many of you who may not. So we really look forward to forming an association with you for future programs. For this program, I would say that we really hope that Ink Dance has offered a new or perhaps different perspective on calligraphy. We know that some of you are very steeped and have much experience in a calligraphic life. For others of you, it may be brand new. So we hope that this balance of showing the basics, but also hearing in more depth the expertise of our tremendous trio that have been presenting so well this evening. As I say, we'll bring you different perspectives. I think we've been shown that, as Yimtse has said, the how is indeed as important as the what, and that calligraphy really reflects the heart, the emotion, temperament, and it really reflects the essence of who we are. So I ask you to reflect on that and remember these wonderful examples of calligraphy that we've viewed. And thank you for attending. We hope to see you again.